Gynecologist molested teen patient. Her shocking revenge ends in murder. The most dangerous predators don't hide in shadows. They operate in plain sight, behind credentials framed on office walls. In the heart of an urban neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, trust wasn't just given. It was the foundation upon which the community stood. Dr. Terrence Carter's gynecology clinic served as more than just a medical facility. It represented a sanctuary of care for countless African American women and teenage girls. His gentle hands and warm smile greeted patients as they entered his modest office, a place where mothers brought daughters for their first examinations, where women sought guidance during their most vulnerable moments. The community didn't just respect Dr. Carter, they revered him. His name passed between neighbors like a precious recommendation. You can trust Dr. Carter. His credentials impressed, but his charm persuaded. His reputation as a compassionate healthcare provider preceded him at church gatherings, neighborhood cookouts, and PDA meetings. After all, he was one of their own, someone who understood their struggles and stayed to serve when other professionals fled to wealthier districts. Yet beneath the comforting gaze of this beloved physician lurked something few could imagine. Behind closed examination room doors, Dr. Carter's healing hands transformed into weapons of violation. His softly spoken medical instructions became covers for exploitation. The privacy curtain that should have protected patients instead concealed his methodical abuse. For 16-year-old Monique, the discovery of this betrayal would trigger a transformation no one saw coming. From vulnerable victim to calculating avenger. Her journey from the sterile examination table to a rain-soaked confrontation would leave both a doctor dead and a community fractured, forcing everyone to question how well they truly knew the man they had entrusted with their most intimate health concerns. Have you ever placed your complete trust in someone, only to discover they were nothing like the person you believed them to be? How would you react if the person meant to protect you became your abuser? Would you seek justice through proper channels, or would your pain drive you toward revenge? Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below as we explore how one teenager's quest for justice ended in murder. Dr. Terrence Carter mastered the art of public perception. His charm worked like gravity, pulling people into his orbit without them realizing they were falling. When he spoke at community health forums, his deep, melodious voice commanded attention, and his perfectly timed jokes eased tensions around difficult medical topics. He knew exactly when to place a reassuring hand on a worried mother's shoulder or how to explain complex procedures in terms anyone could understand. The clinic itself reflected his carefully cultivated image. Unlike the cold, institutional facilities in wealthier parts of town, Dr. Carter's practice felt welcoming. Walls painted in soft blues and greens, comfortable seating, and soothing music playing in the waiting area. Framed diplomas hung strategically where patients couldn't miss them. Prestigious medical school, notable residency, board certifications that established credibility without a word being spoken. He built trust through calculated generosity. The sliding scale payment options made healthcare accessible to families struggling financially. His willingness to accept last-minute appointments during emergencies earned him gratitude. The annual free screening days for women without insurance became community events that positioned him as a healthcare hero. Dr. Carter could have practiced anywhere, people often remarked, but he chose to stay and serve our community. This narrative of sacrifice enhanced his reputation, particularly among African American families who had experienced discrimination in other healthcare settings. He understood their cultural concerns and never rushed appointments, creating an atmosphere where patients felt heard rather than processed. Yet hidden beneath this carefully constructed facade existed a man who documented patient visits with unusual thoroughness. His examination room had no windows. The nurse who normally assisted during sensitive examinations was frequently sent on errands for just a few minutes during certain appointments. His requests for one-on-one sessions with teenage patients seemed medically unnecessary in retrospect. Community members missed these red flags. The receptionist who noticed teenage patients leaving his office with reddened eyes assumed they'd received concerning medical news. The nurse who questioned his examination techniques soon found herself replaced. Parents who noted their daughter's reluctance to return for follow-ups attributed it to normal teenage anxiety about gynecological exams. The most telling warning sign appeared appeared in his eyes, a fleeting glimmer of calculation when he thought no one was watching. It surfaced when he studied young patients in the waiting room or when he locked his office door after hours to review patient files. This momentary crack in his performance revealed Dr. Carter's true nature. Not a dedicated healer, but a calculating predator whose perfect persona served as both shield and weapon. Monique Williams carried herself with quiet confidence that belied her 16 years. Honor roll student with dreams of becoming a pediatrician, she filled notebooks with meticulous biology notes and volunteered at the community center teaching younger children how to read. Her sensitivity emerged in small gestures, leaving encouraging sticky notes in classmates' lockers when they struggled, or staying after school to help teachers organize their classrooms. Behind closed doors, however, Monique shouldered responsibilities far beyond her years. Her mother, Denise, worked double shifts at the hospital as a custodial supervisor, leaving before dawn and returning well after dinner. The Williams women operated as a team, Monique cooking meals, handling laundry, and maintaining their modest two-bedroom apartment while excelling academically. "We make it work," Denise would say, exhaustion etched across her face as she counted bills at their kitchen table. Without health insurance from her employer, medical care became a luxury they couldn't afford. Each doctor's visit meant choosing between electricity and medication, between new school supplies and follow-up appointments. Their financial tightrope walk left them vulnerable in ways neither fully recognized. When Monique complained of irregular periods and severe cramps, Denise felt trapped, unable to afford specialized care, but unwilling to neglect her daughter's health. The community clinic had months-long waiting lists. Private practices required insurance they didn't have. Dr. Carter's name first reached Denise through a co-worker whose daughter received treatment at his clinic. "He has payment plans," the woman explained, "and he actually listens." When Denise called, the receptionist mentioned their sliding scale fees and assured her they could work something out. During their initial consultation, Dr. Carter spoke directly to Monique, explaining reproductive health in terms that respected her intelligence without overwhelming her. To Denise, this attention validated her sacrifices. Finally, someone treated her daughter with the care she deserved. When Dr. Carter offered a discount on Monique's treatments, tears welled in Denise's eyes. "Your daughter has tremendous potential," he told Denise. "Consider this my investment in her future." That moment sealed Denise's trust. She arranged her work schedule around Monique's appointments, believing she'd found not just a doctor, but an ally who recognized her daughter's promise. The relief of securing affordable health care blinded her to questions she might otherwise have asked. Monique marked the date on her calendar with a small star, her third appointment with Dr. Carter. The previous visits had gone smoothly. Routine questions, standard examinations, and prescriptions for medication that eased her cramping. Yet this time, a faint discomfort nagged at her as she sat in the waiting room. The receptionist smiled less warmly. The nurse seemed rushed, small shifts in atmosphere that registered just below conscious awareness. "Monique Williams?" The nurse called, leading her to the scale, measuring her height, and taking her blood pressure before directing her to examination room 3. "Dr. Carter will be with you shortly. You'll need to change into this gown. Open in the front, please." The examination room felt different from how she remembered. Colder, perhaps. The walls a starker white under the overhead lighting. The paper crinkled beneath her as she perched on the edge of the table, dressed in the thin cotton gown that offered the illusion of coverage rather than actual protection. Medical diagrams of female anatomy stared back at her from the wall, clinical reminders of why she was here. A knock, then Dr. Carter entered with his characteristic smile. "How's my future doctor doing today?" he asked, referencing her career aspirations from their first meeting. He washed his hands methodically while chatting about school, her mother's long hours, her recent biology test. The conversation felt normal, safe. "Nurse Jenkins got called to an emergency," he explained, drying his hands. "We'll proceed without her today, if that's all right with you." The first warning, subtle but clear in retrospect. What followed began as routine. Questions about her cycle, the effectiveness of her medication, any new symptoms. His manner remained professional as he instructed her to lie back. The examination started normally. Then it changed. His touch lingered, moved where it shouldn't. His questions became personal, inappropriate. When Monique stiffened, confusion clouding her expression, he spoke in the same reassuring doctor's voice. "This is completely standard. Try to relax." The room's edges blurred as her mind attempted to process what was happening. The cognitive dissonance between between the trusted doctor and the current reality created a paralysis. Her body frozen while her mind screamed that something was deeply wrong. When she managed to whisper, "Should you be doing that?" his response came with practiced ease. "I need to check for several conditions. This is medically necessary." Minutes stretched like hours before it ended. Dr. Carter stepped back, making notes in her chart as though nothing unusual had occurred. "Everything looks normal," he said. "We'll see you again in 3 months." Monique dressed with trembling hands after he left. Each movement felt mechanical, disconnected from her body. The hallway to the reception area seemed miles long. She signed her checkout form with handwriting she didn't recognize as her own. No one noticed the vacant look in her eyes or how she hugged her jacket around herself despite the warm day. Outside, she vomited in the parking lot behind a parked car. Have you ever experienced a moment when reality shifts so dramatically that you question your own perception? When someone you trusted completely violates that trust, does the mind sometimes protect itself by refusing to immediately accept what happened? How many victims silence themselves with thoughts like, "Maybe I'm misunderstood," or "No one will believe me over someone respected"? Trauma doesn't just wound, it isolates. It rebuilds the world into before and after, leaving victims stranded in an after that no one else can see. The days following the appointment fragmented into disconnected moments for Monique. She showered 3 times the first night, scrubbing her skin until it reddened. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by sudden jolts of awareness, her body remembering what her mind tried to forget. Morning brought no relief. She stared at her ceiling, replaying every second, searching for something she might have done differently. "Are you feeling okay?" her mother asked at breakfast, noting Monique's untouched food and unusual silence. "Just tired from studying," she replied, the first of many lies that would stack between them like invisible bricks. School became an exercise in pretending. She walked the same hallways, sat in the same classrooms, but viewed everything through a distorted lens. Academic concepts that once fascinated her now slipped through her grasp. During biology class, once her favorite, she excused herself when the teacher began discussing human reproduction, locking herself in a bathroom stall until she could breathe normally again. Her friends noticed the change. The Monique who organized study groups and volunteered for every project now declined invitations and withdrew from conversations. "You're so distant lately," they told her. How could she explain that closeness now felt dangerous? That trust had become a luxury she could no longer afford? Easier to push them away than risk their disbelief. Or worse, their pity. Nights proved hardest. Darkness brought dreams where examination rooms stretched endlessly, where voices said, "This is normal," while hands moved with terrible purpose. She developed rituals to delay sleep, checking door locks repeatedly, positioning furniture to block her bedroom door, keeping the lights on until exhaustion finally claimed her. Her thoughts circled through a relentless loop. Was it really inappropriate? Or am I overreacting? If I tell Mom, she'll blame herself for choosing him. What if no one believes me? What if this happens to someone else because I stayed quiet? Shame followed her like a shadow, irrational but persistent. Though intellectually she knew victims don't bear responsibility, emotion operates by different rules. She felt contaminated, damaged in ways invisible to others, but glaringly obvious to herself. Where her mother mentioned scheduling the recommended 3-month follow-up, Monique's carefully constructed facade cracked. "I don't want to go back there," she whispered, eyes fixed on the floor. But Dr. Carter said, "Please, Mom, I'll go somewhere else." Her voice wavered. "Anywhere else." Concern flashed across Denise's face, but financial realities interceded. "We can't afford somewhere new right now. Let me see what overtime I can pick up." Trapped by circumstances beyond her control, Monique nodded silently, her mind already calculating how many days remained before she would face him again. If someone you know has experienced trauma, what support would actually help them? Not platitudes or forced optimism, but real support? Comment below with ways we can better help survivors feel believed and protected. And if you're watching this while carrying your own trauma, remember, your reaction, whatever it is, makes sense. Like this video if you believe we need more honest conversations about how trauma reshapes lives. 3 weeks after the incident, Monique overheard a conversation in the school bathroom that stopped her mid-step. "My cousin went to Dr. Carter last month," a girl said, voice lowered. "She came out crying. Wouldn't tell anyone why." "That's weird," her friend responded. "Tiffany from my church refused to go back to him too. Her mom was furious about finding a new doctor. Monique stood frozen, her reflection pale in the mirror. For the first time since the appointment, a terrible thought surfaced. What if I'm not the only one? That evening, she purchased a composition notebook with her lunch money. On the first page, she recorded the bathroom conversation, noting names, dates, and exact wording. This became her system, documenting every rumor, every strange comment about Dr. Carter with journalistic precision. The pages filled with potential victims. A sophomore who transferred schools suddenly, a church member's daughter who had issues with him, a neighbor who warned her sister to find another doctor. None provided concrete proof, but together they formed a pattern too consistent to dismiss. During a follow-up appointment, which she attended only to gather information, Monique noticed things her trauma had previously obscured. How Dr. Carter selected which patients received nurse accompaniment. How certain girls left with the same vacant expression she recognized from her own mirror. The receptionists practiced indifference when distressed patients exited. She noted these observations in her journal, alongside questions. How long has this been happening? Has anyone reported him? Why is he still practicing? The library computer became her investigative headquarters. She researched medical ethics codes, read about proper examination protocols, and educated herself on patient rights. Each discovery confirmed what she already knew. What happened wasn't medical care, it was assault. Her search history grew more targeted. How to report doctor misconduct, statute of limitations medical abuse, doctor-patient sexual assault cases. The results discouraged her. Cases dismissed due to lack of evidence. Victims discredited. Careers continuing despite multiple accusations. On a patient rights forum, Monique created an anonymous account, Healing in Progress 16. Her first post was simple. I think my doctor touched me inappropriately during an exam. I'm hearing about other patients with similar experiences. What do I do? Responses flooded in, some with practical advice about reporting procedures, others sharing similar experiences. One comment resonated deeply. Document everything. Your memory is evidence. Your experience matters. Through private messages, she connected with others who understood. They formed a small community of survivors, exchanging resources and validation when official channels seemed designed to protect doctors rather than patients. In her bedroom, Monique created a timeline on the back pages of her journal. Each entry represented a suspected victim, forming a history of abuse spanning years. The pattern was unmistakable and deeply disturbing. Dr. Carter wasn't making occasional mistakes. He was methodically selecting vulnerable patients, predominantly young African-American girls from families with limited resources. The realization settled heavily. The system designed to protect her was actively shielding her abuser instead. Knowledge transformed Monique's fear into something harder, colder. The journal that began as documentation evolved into strategy. Each page now contained not just victim accounts, but detailed observations of Dr. Carter's routines. When he arrived at the clinic, which days he worked late, what car he drove, where he lived. She followed him one Tuesday after school, maintaining a careful distance as a silver Lexus wound through neighborhoods increasingly affluent until reaching a modern glass and steel home isolated on a wooded lot. The contrast between his modest clinic and private residence spoke volumes. He cultivated his community practice while enjoying luxury far from his patient's view. Monique mapped his weekly patterns with methodical precision. Mondays and Wednesdays, clinic until 6 p.m., then dinner at Marcello's Italian restaurant with colleagues. Tuesdays and Thursdays, clinic until 8 p.m., straight home. Fridays, half day at the clinic, then weekend retreat to his lakeside property 30 miles north. Weekends alone in isolated luxury. The girl who once trusted authority now questioned everything. She recorded license plates of cars at his home, researched property records online, and photographed his daily movements with her phone from discrete distances. When she learned his security system password by watching him enter it, his medical license number, she noted it without fully acknowledging why such information might matter. What happens when institutions fail victims? She typed into a search engine late one night. The results offered little comfort. Lengthy legal battles, re-traumatization through testimony, accused doctors continuing to practice during investigations. Her mother noticed changes. Monique's new habit of disappearing for hours, her withdrawn demeanor, her intense focus on unfamiliar tasks. Is everything okay? Denise asked, concern etching her tired face. I'm working on a project, Monique answered. Not entirely a lie. lie. The moral wrestling consumed her quiet moments. She'd been raised with clear values. Violence solves nothing. Two wrongs don't make a right. Justice comes through proper channels. Yet those channels seemed designed to protect men like Dr. Carter, not girls like her. Each night brought the same battle between her ethical foundation and growing rage. In her bedroom, she created a decision tree with branching scenarios. Report to medical board, likely dismissed for lack of evidence. He continues practicing. More victims report to police. Same result. Confront publicly. My word. Against his career destroyed. Either way, confront privately. The question mark haunted her. What exactly did confrontation mean? Where was the line between justice and vengeance? When systems meant to protect instead perpetuate harm, where does responsibility fall? Her transformation accelerated after discovering Dr. Carter's newest patient, a 14-year-old whose single mother worked with Denise. The familiar pattern: financial hardship, reduced fee offered, private consultations recommended. Monique recognized the selection process with sickening clarity. That night, she added a final branch to her decision tree, writing the words that crossed an invisible boundary: permanent solution. The girl who entered Dr. Carter's office months ago, trusting, hopeful, innocent, no longer existed. In her place stood someone calculating, determined, and dangerous. Someone who checked bus schedules to his weekend home, researched the response time of rural police departments, and packed a backpack with items chosen for a specific purpose. As Friday approached, Monique made her decision. The moral lines she'd once seen as fixed now appeared flexible in the face of continued harm. Justice had failed. Prevention became her priority. Rain pounded the windows of the bus as it traveled the lonely highway north, headlights cutting through darkness that seemed absolute. Monique sat alone in the back, her reflection ghostly against the glass, backpack clutched to her chest. The weather forecast had promised clear skies. This downpour felt like nature's acknowledgement of what was coming. The bus stopped a mile from Dr. Carter's weekend residence. Monique stepped into the deluge, water immediately soaking through her hoodie. Each step along the rural road felt deliberate, her mind oddly calm. The weight of the backpack reminded her of her purpose. Lightning flashed, illuminating the modern structure ahead. All glass and angles perched on the hillside, lights glowing inside like a beacon. 9:43 p.m. Dr. Carter's car sat in the driveway, confirming he was alone as expected. Security cameras positioned at obvious points were easy to avoid. The back entrance, primarily for maintenance, remained the weak point in his security system. 3 minutes of focused work on the lock, techniques learned from online videos, and she stood inside his home. The interior confirmed what she'd suspected. His life was compartmentalized. No family photos, no evidence of connection. Clinical precision in the furnishings, expensive but impersonal. She moved silently through rooms that felt more like a magazine spread than a home. Water dripping from her clothes onto polished hardwood floors. She found him in his study, back turned, reviewing patient files on a sleek computer, perhaps selecting his next victim. The glass of bourbon beside the keyboard caught the lamplight. Her shadow stretched across the doorway, prompting him to turn. What? Recognition dawned instantly. Monique, how did you get in here? You should upgrade your security, she said, voice steadier than she'd anticipated. Like you should have had a nurse present during my examination. He shifted seamlessly into his professional persona. There seems to be a misunderstanding. Why don't we discuss whatever's bothering you? I know about the others, she said. Tiffany Jackson, Amara Wilson, Kylie Denton. They told me what you did to them too. Fear flickered across his face before his confident mask returned. These are serious accusations. Accusations from troubled teenage girls without evidence. He stood, moving toward the phone on his desk. I need to call your mother. Don't touch that phone. Her hand emerged from her pocket, clutching a small object. I have evidence. Your patient notes. Your special documentation. The videos. He froze. What videos? The ones from your office. Hidden camera, doctor. Same technique you used on us. A lie. But his reaction confirmed a truth far worse than she'd imagined. His expression collapsed into naked panic. There were recordings. He had documented his violations. Those are private medical. Those are crimes. Her voice rose despite her attempts to control it. And now I have proof. His demeanor transformed completely. Professional facade evaporating. You have nothing. He advanced toward her. A delinquent teenager breaking into my home with wild accusations. Who would believe you over me? The familiar dismissal, the same one the system offered victims, ignited something primal inside her. As he reached for her, Monique's hand moved in practice. practiced motion. The object she'd carried wasn't evidence, but protection, a knife from her mother's kitchen. What followed occurred in fragmented seconds. His attempt to grab her defensive move, the look of shock as the blade connected, his stumble backward, the crimson stain expanding across his shirt, his body collapsing against his desk, papers falling, computer crashing to the floor. Silence followed, broken only by rain against windows and her own ragged breathing. The reality of what she'd done crashed over her. The knife fell from her fingers. She backed away, hands trembling as Dr. Carter remained motionless on the floor. Blood pooled beneath him, reaching toward her shoes in a slow crawl across polished wood. She'd imagined this moment differently. Satisfaction, perhaps, or justice fulfilled. Instead, emptiness filled her chest. The monster who had haunted her nightmares now lay still, reduced to flesh and blood. The power she thought she'd reclaim through this act remained elusive. Time distorted as she gathered herself. With mechanical movements, she wiped surfaces she might have touched, retrieved her backpack, closed the door behind her. Each step through the rain back to the bus stop felt disconnected from reality, as though she watched herself from a distance, a stranger moving through the night. Dr. Carter's body was discovered Monday morning when he failed to appear for appointments. The cleaning service contacted police after finding the unlocked door and the grim scene within. Detective Marcus Wells led the investigation, methodically collecting evidence from the rain-soaked property. Security cameras, though strategically avoided during entry, captured a partial image of a hooded figure walking away. Digital forensics revealed searches for bus schedules on Monique's school computer. 3 days later, officers arrived at the Williams apartment. Monique sat motionless on the couch as they explained the evidence connecting her to the scene. Bus ticket purchase records, cell phone location data, placing her near the residence. And most damning, a journal documenting her surveillance of Dr. Carter. They found no recordings or evidence of his misconduct among his possessions. The community fractured along sharp lines. Outside the courthouse, two groups faced off, supporters holding justice for Dr. Carter's signs versus advocates with Believe Survivors placards. Former patients came forward with contradictory accounts, some defending his professional conduct while others, emboldened by Monique's action, shared stories mirroring her experience. Local news painted competing narratives. Troubled teen murders respected doctor versus system failed abuse victims. National media descended, transforming a personal tragedy into political talking points. Cable news hosts debated vigilante justice while glossing over the institutional failures that preceded it. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Justice for Monique and hashtag Protect Our Doctors trended simultaneously. Comment sections became battlegrounds where strangers fought proxy wars over whose pain deserved acknowledgement. The juvenile detention center processed Monique mechanically. Photographs, fingerprints, orange jumpsuit. Her mother collapsed against the wall when allowed their first visit, while Monique's face remained expressionless. The psychological evaluation noted significant trauma response and dissociative elements consistent with post-traumatic stress. Her attorney, a public defender with exhausted eyes and too many cases, laid out options in their first meeting. The evidence is substantial, she explained, but so is the potential defense given the circumstances. Will anyone believe me about what he did? Monique asked. The attorney's hesitation provided the answer Monique already knew. The system that failed to protect her would now judge her response to that failure. Monique's case became more than a local tragedy. It exposed gaps in systems designed to protect the vulnerable. Medical oversight boards rarely investigated without multiple formal complaints. Police departments lacked specialized training for handling sexual assault allegations against respected professionals. Schools missed opportunities to identify students in crisis. The courthouse steps hosted weekly protests throughout Monique's trial. Parents demanded better safeguards for young patients, chaperone requirements, anonymous reporting systems, background checks that looked beyond criminal records to include complaint histories. These changes came too late for Monique, but perhaps early enough for others. What transforms a victim into someone capable of violence? Where does responsibility lie when protective systems fail repeatedly? At what point does individual action become inevitable in the absence of institutional justice? These questions haunted community discussions long after media attention faded. Dr. Carter's clinic closed permanently. Former patients sought care elsewhere, many discovering that their discomfort with his methods had been justified rather than oversensitive. The community health center expanded services in response, implementing strict protocols to prevent similar abuses. For the families involved, the impact proved indelible. Denise visited her daughter weekly, carrying the weight of a mother's guilt for trusting the wrong person with her child's care. Other victims formed support groups, finding strength in shared experiences previously suffered in isolation. The warning signs had always been visible. They simply required eyes willing to see them. Excessive privacy during examinations, dismissal of patient concerns, targeting vulnerable populations less likely to report misconduct. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to our channel for more content that examines the complex interplay between trauma and justice. Share in the comments where you believe the system failed Monique. Was it the medical board, law enforcement, or somewhere else entirely? Your perspective matters in this ongoing conversation about protecting those most vulnerable among us.